Hey, English 2. It's Mr. Kirkley, and it is Monday, April 20th. So, since we've been away from each other for a while, I thought I would show you my face. Here I am. Hey. With this unit on humor, I'm going to be adding some notes on this Google Slides that I just shared in Google Classroom. So, I want to go over that with you real quickly. Today's slides are going to be about irony, and I'll just keep adding different elements of humor to this slide share that I've got on Google Classroom. So, hopefully, you can see that there on the video. The different tools of irony or tools of humor that we're going to cover are first irony, which is today, and then repetition, juxtaposition, characterization, absurdity, and bathos. And then after that, we'll probably talk a little bit about different subgenres of comedy in literature. All right, so this is hopefully a review, but let's do it. All right. First of all, a definition of irony is just a literary technique using two contradicting meanings of the same situation, event, image, sentence, phrase, or story. In essence, irony is always about a difference between what you expect and what you get, right? So probably the best definition for you is right over here where it says you get the opposite from what you expect. So an example would be a fire station burning down. That would be ironic because it's the last place you would think of as burning. The whole point of a fire station is to stop things from burning. All right. Okay, simple. Now, let's take a look here. There are three different kinds of irony. First is situational irony, and that's just when a situation is ironic. So when the opposite of what we expect to happen happens. So last week you read The Gift of the Magi, and that was a good example of situational irony. When you've got Della and Jim, they each receive gifts that they could only use if they still had the thing that they gave up to get the gifts they gave the other one. So you got this like humorous, ironical situation. The next kind of irony is called dramatic irony. This is when the reader or the audience, if it's a play or a movie or a TV show, when we know something that the characters don't know, and if they knew what we know, they would not be acting how they're acting, right? So in Gift of the Magi, we know that Della cut her hair so that she could buy the watch chain for Jim. And so we know that Jim should not be buying her a comb that's going to be useless for her, and yet he does. And so the whole time we're kind of like, anxious about the fact that they don't realize what's really going on, but we do know what's going on. Okay. And then the third kind of irony is verbal irony. This is when we use words or phrases in unexpected ways or in ways opposite to the way we should normally use them. So, for instance, sarcasm is a form of verbal irony, right? So like in my example here, on the way to school, the school bus gets a flat tire, and then the bus driver says, "Oh, excellent. This day couldn't start off any better," right? So he's using the word excellent and the word better in the opposite ways from what they normally mean, right? Sarcasm. So actually, within verbal irony, there are different types of verbal irony. So like sarcasm, I just said, was saying the opposite of what you mean. Then you've got puns. Puns are when you make jokes based on the multiple possible meanings of an individual word or phrase. Like, I was struggling to figure out how lightning works, but then it struck me, right? So that word struck there is being used in two different ways at once. So that's what makes it quote unquote funny. Yes, puns aren't haha, but you know what I mean. And then you've got double entendres. A double entendre is when you use a word or a phrase that has two different interpretations, like a pun, but one of them is actually indecent or kind of sketchy or sexual in nature. So like the classic pickup line, if I said you had a beautiful body, would you hold it against me? Right. So that phrase, if you hold it against me, having two meanings and one of them being not necessarily appropriate. Okay, and then the final two things are understatement and overstatement. We have fancy versions of those. The fancy version of the word understatement is litotes, and the fancy word for overstatement is hyperbole. Okay,